coffee or a kind bar or some bagels. So you're all set. We're gonna get started and settle in. Again, thank you and welcome to Creative Mornings Detroit. We are so happy to have you all here. And I know it's a little hard to see our slides, so bear with me, but good morning. Appreciate you guys being here. You can't really see it, but if you guys take photos or videos, please feel free to tag us, hashtag CMDetroit, check us out on Twitter and Facebook. Can't read it, but I encourage you to go read it later. But this is our Creative Mornings Manifesto. And basically, in sum, our whole goal with Creative Mornings is that we just believe everyone is creative, everyone has a story. So this is our venue and our opportunity to help people tell their personal stories and tell what inspires them, and just connecting that creative community around the world. We're in 188 cities. This is our 10th year. In Detroit, I think we've been around about 5 years, and I volunteered last year, so I'm your new host. So again, thanks for everyone bearing with me as I learn everything. Also, I just want to say one of the things that we do with Creative Mornings, with our global headquarters, is that we sponsor with companies who are creative and innovative, and companies that we feel care about creatives and people who are doing good things in the world and changing the world. So I just want to give a shout out and thanks to our partners and sponsors, MailChimp, Adobe, and WordPress. We have local sponsors, so Kind Bars. So if you guys have come at some of our past lectures, we have the Kind Bars. Please grab some. They're so nice, they're so supportive, so please keep that going. And also we want to say thank you to Playground Detroit for hosting us. This is a new spot for us, and what we really appreciate is people who want to collaborate with us around the city and offer up their space to be here. We really could not do it without people opening up their spaces and being supportive in that way. So just want to say thank you to Playground Detroit. This month, as I mentioned, this is a little artwork, and if you guys can't see it, I encourage you to check it out on our Facebook page and on Twitter. But this was designed by the Oakland chapter, and that changes each month. I just think this is adorable. I think it's so cute. So this is the Oakland chapter that I made you all say thank you to earlier. I appreciate that. And this month, if you guys don't know, our theme changes each month. So this month is courage. So we're going to go ahead and hand it over to our courageous speaker, Laura Khalil.
Sit down.
Yep.
Good morning, Detroit. Fuck the slides. We don't need them. All right. I'm just going to leave. I'm not even going to touch them. All right. So I want to start by saying, I first had to look up what courage meant, right? Because I wasn't, I'm supposed to be an expert on it. And so the definition of courage, I've come to learn, is the ability to do something that frightens one. Perfect. I have lived a lot of my life dealing with pretty big fears and learning how to deal with them, overcome them, and propel myself forward. So thank you, Anne-Marie, for having me come today. As some of you guys may know, the 5 most stressful things in life, they often say, are divorce, death, moving, a serious illness, and job loss. I'd like to posit that there's a 6th one. Please clap if you know what I'm talking about. That's online dating. Yes, thank you. Yes. Okay. But my point in saying that is when I was 27, I got divorced. I had been with my ex-husband since I was 17 years old. We lived together in Montreal, and I knew nothing about the world. I was in a dead-end job, professionally, personally. I was in a city I was really not that interested in living in anymore, and I felt like I was treading water. I also knew that I should have left years earlier. But I was afraid. I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to navigate a relationship. I didn't understand what that meant. And I repeatedly ignored my intuition. until I could not ignore my intuition any further. And what started as a somewhat emotionally abusive relationship, I was forced to leave when things got to the point where I was fearing for my life. And that was the moment that catalyzed me to walk out the door and never turn around. Now, when that happened, I spent the next following weeks living on my friends' couches trying to figure out my next move. And I knew that there was one thing I really wanted to do. I had one thing in my mind. I wanted to move to San Francisco. I had dreamed of living in that city. And as it so happened, I had a plane ticket to go out there 7 weeks from when I left my husband. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to move on that trip, and I'm going to move with a job and an apartment when I get there. Now, you might think that's crazy, but part of being courageous is being a little crazy and doing things and just moving mountains. And sure enough, that's what I did. I'd go to my day job every day, and I would sit there and after work, open up Craigslist, apply to everything I could find. I worked tirelessly, and I focused completely on that one notion that I had to move to San Francisco, and I was going to do it. And sure enough, I found the job, and I found the apartment, and I moved a week ahead of schedule. That was definitely a very scary moment in my life. Was it courageous? Sure, I guess it was courageous. But what I believe, and this is what I want to start by telling you, is that when the pain of staying the same is greater than the discomfort of changing, you will begin to transform. I'll repeat that again. When the pain of staying the same is greater than the discomfort of change, because believe me, change is so uncomfortable. But when you do that, you'll begin to transform. I spent 8 years in San Francisco. And it was on this move that I really began to feel alive as a 27-year-old. For the first time, I experienced life. I experienced new types of people and different people I never would have met. I truly felt alive. And none of that would have happened if I had stayed in that dead-end marriage in Montreal. And believe me, I love Montreal in the summer, but the other 9 months of the year, it's a fucking nightmare. I hope you don't mind my profanity. That's just who I am. I worked for startups when I moved to San Francisco. I got into tech marketing. And I worked for startups. I saw companies bought. I saw companies sold for parts. I watched some of my companies IPO. I watched other companies grow. I wore a number of marketing hats over that period of time. But one thing always followed me. And see, that was my uncanny ability to get laid off. Now, if anyone has a superpower, mine was getting fired. It was like I was working on my doctorate in losing a job. If you needed to lose a job, come talk to me. Even today, I will tell you how to do it. So job after job, I was always having these problems with my bosses. And inevitably, my strong, confident, and opinionated disposition always rubbed someone the wrong way. Now, part of me, again, knew I really wasn't supposed to be in full-time employment, right? Kind of like I wasn't really supposed to be in my marriage. I really wasn't supposed to be in full-time employment, but I kept ignoring this. I believe the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And by the last time I was fired, which was 5 years ago, I remember walking out of that boardroom, holding back tears, going to my desk, and I felt like such a fool. And I was also starting to feel a little crazy. That day, I went home and I had this crystal clear vision. It was like I was given a moment of insight, and I could see exactly what was going to happen in the next 30 years, clear as day. And all I could see is if I continued full-time employment, there would be misery there would be failure after failure. And I could see that at the end of that road, when I was ready to retire, I would be close to suicide. I just knew it. I just knew it was not the path. And it was in that moment when I remembered what helped me leave my marriage, which was when the pain of staying the same is greater than the discomfort of change, you will begin to transform. And that afternoon, I made a decision that I had been too afraid to make for years. And that decision was to start my own marketing consultancy. I built my website over the weekend. I had business cards printed, and I began telling everyone I knew. Now, I had a little cushion thanks to that unemployment check, but I was ready to go. And again, single-minded, focused. And what I learned again is that when I focused on something that scared me, I could move mountains. I directed all of my energy into the business, and in about 6 weeks, I won my first Fortune 100 client. That was Intel. 6 weeks after that, I got my second Fortune 100 client. That was GE. Then I got Twitter. Then I got into it, and I was off to the races, building a 6-figure marketing consulting business that I never could have done if I'd stayed in full-time employment. And what I realized was that my traits of being bold and opinionated and loud, I mean, my God, I don't even need a microphone. These things that had always dinged me in full-time employment, they are what helped me be a great consultant. Why is that? Because when you go in to consult with a company, I'm going as an expert. They're paying me to give an opinion. They're paying me to be direct. That was my wheelhouse, and I just didn't realize it. In fact, I kind of did, but I had ignored it for years. Now, a couple years ago into this little adventure, I decided to make another leap. And that leap was leaving San Francisco. The creative community there had really begun to become quite diminished, and I decided to move to Detroit. I had come to Detroit, I felt that there was a lot of creative energy here, and I didn't know exactly why I wanted to be here, and everybody thought I was crazy. Detroiters thought I was crazy, San Franciscans thought I was crazy, but I just felt like it was the right thing, and so I sold everything I owned and I moved. Now, this time, the courage was a lot easier to conjure. I didn't need to go through tons of pain to make the move. I didn't need to be at, the depths of despair to do it. Because, you see, I had gotten better at listening to my intuition and better at trusting myself, and making these scary leaps had suddenly become a lot easier. If I learned anything from my past courageous leaps, it was that I always landed on my feet. And life just always felt more joyful. So Detroit has provided me with a wealth of creative opportunities. I've got to be on many stages and tell stories. I've done more public speaking. I've started a podcast. I've explored my love of humor writing. And I've really strengthened this creative muscle that I didn't quite realize I ever had. And I never would have done that staying in San Francisco. It had to happen in Detroit. What I want to tell you is that what I came to learn through this experience was that I adopted courage as a habit. And the more I used courage as a habit, the easier it became to be courageous. I want to say, I don't believe that you're a worrier. I don't believe that you have anxiety. I believe you have a habit of worrying. I believe you have a habit of being anxious. And I also believe that you can change that. So, there's this quote I really love. It says, "Don't half-ass anything. Whatever you do, always use your full ass." Now, I feel like I'm somewhat of an expert on this. So, I am totally into this quote. Your greatest gift to the world is to share your unique talents. Don't give us a watered-down version of yourself just to please other people. You don't need permission from your parents your partners, your church, or your friends to do what you do. I want everyone to remember your family is invested in keeping you safe. That is, you hear me? That is their goal for thousands of years in the tribe, is to keep the community safe, to keep the individual safe, to keep the tribe alive. Okay, their benefit is not, they love you, but it's not necessarily in seeing you go do something crazy, different, untested. So be careful who you listen to, and be careful who you look for validation from, because they may not be the right people to get validation from. All right, now I want to move on to what I'm calling the 6 factors of living courageously, because I wanted to give you guys some like actionable stuff, because that's what I like in a talk. So, the first one, there will never be a good time. There just isn't. I mean, how many, like, please, show of hands, how many people said, okay, once I'm done with this job, I'm going to leave this job eventually, and then I'm going to do the thing that I really want to do. Please, show everyone that we're sharing in this struggle. Yes, okay. Some of us are, others of us are like, I don't know, flying from the rafters. Great. There will always be an excuse. Always, I don't care, there will always be an excuse. You gotta realize that's an excuse. That's all it is. I'm not saying to quit your job tomorrow. I'm not saying, to do something radical. I'm saying to start taking the steps, the small steps, towards doing the thing you want to do today. You are, number 2, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do, okay? Okay, so let's back up 5 years. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a little ashamed to say that I loved, strong word, 50 Shades of Grey. I read all the 50 Shades. Okay? I wanted 100 Shades. I loved it. I was just like this. I never read a romance novel. I was like, oh my God, like, this is wild. Okay. I had this dream for a long time to become a romance novel writer. I wanted to be the next E.L. James. I was like trashy romance. I'm like, I got this. Now, I obviously never did this. But no, I am E.L. James. I'm kidding. Okay. No, I never did this, but I talked about it for years. And eventually a very good friend of mine said to me, Laura, are you going to sit down and write that fucker? Or are you just going to talk about it? And I said, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down and not do anything. So just remember, go do it. And I'm going to teach you how to go do it. I love this. Okay, has anyone here heard of Mel Robbins' 5-second rule?
Yes.
Yes. And does it work?
I forgot to do it.
But it works.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Yes. We're going to do. Okay. We're going to do it. So here's this 5-second rule. It's credited to a woman named Mel Robbins. This is the rule. You can buy the book, but you don't need to. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you have an impulse to act on a goal, you must physically move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill the idea. Your brain is always looking to kill threats. Any creative idea that you have that's really different, that's a threat. So the 5-second rule is a way of moving you into immediate action before killing the threat. So I'll give you an example that Mel gives in her book. She says she had trouble getting up in the morning. And she had so much trouble getting up, she'd keep hitting the snooze. And she'd keep hitting the snooze so much that what would actually happen, her kids would be late to school, her day would be completely thrown off, she could never get back on track, her life was in a literal tailspin. And one day, she said, no, it's going to be different. You know how we always say, no, tomorrow's going to be different, I'm going to start the diet tomorrow, I'm going to burn my online dating profile account tomorrow. Is that just me? All right. So she said, tomorrow's going to be different. And so what she did was different. She got into bed. Next morning, the alarm goes off. And she says, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up. And she stands up. She can't believe it worked. The next morning, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, up, and she gets up. This rule has actually proven to be extremely successful when you're trying to break through a small challenge like that. When you are holding yourself back from doing something, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 it. Here are a few examples. If you're in a meeting, and ladies, I know this is you sometimes. You're in a meeting and someone is saying something ridiculous and you're like, what? Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and speak up. Don't raise your hand. Men don't raise their hands, by the way. A little pro tip for you. If you want to go to the gym while sitting in front of a TV, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up and go put your gym clothes on. And don't sit back down. And if you want to talk to that cute guy or girl at the bar, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go talk to them. Walk towards them and smile. How hard is that? It kills the instinct to stop yourself. And I really encourage you guys to, if you learn anything from this talk, take that with you. Try that out. Try the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 things that scare you. Okay, number 3. You can't change what you refuse to confront. So you have to get used to being in uncomfortable situations. The fact is that growth really occurs at that border between support and challenge. Now, sometimes in the pursuit of your goals, you're going to be nice to people, right? Michiganders, this is going to be tough for you to hear. Other times, you're going to be mean, okay? Sometimes you're going to be subtle, and other times you're going to be direct. Always being nice to people, no matter what, does not serve you. And it doesn't serve them either. You are robbing people of the ability to grow by not telling them the truth. Okay, you are robbing them of the ability. I'm going to tell you a little story. This happened recently. I have a good friend. She was applying for a fellowship, a writing fellowship. She asked me to write a letter of recommendation. I didn't have time to write it. So I said, listen, you write the letter. I'll read it over and make my tweaks, send it in. Well, I got the letter, and I was dismayed. I was dismayed with the quality of the writing. I was dismayed with the professionalism. I did not see her being able to get this fellowship. And I was surprised nobody had told her that her writing needed more work to get there. Now, I could have just been nice and sent it in. But the nicest thing that I thought to do was to gently tell her the truth, was to gently confront a very difficult situation and say to a friend, listen, you need help. And you need help, and I'm telling you need help because I believe in you. If I didn't believe in you, yeah, sure, it's great, whatever. But I do believe in you, and because I believe in you, I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you to do better because I know you're capable of it. So please remember that. Oh, and by the way, I told her that. I told her about my own experiences with my failures in writing in the past. And you know what she did? She didn't get mad at me. She thanked me. She thanked me because she said nobody would tell her the truth. People value the truth. And in gentle ways, you don't need to hit someone over the head with a sledgehammer. But sometimes the nicest thing you can do is be honest with someone. Okay, number 4. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's a Jim Rohn quote. Pay attention to who you are spending your time with. Are they inspiring you? Are they lifting you up? Do they suck? Are they constantly downers? Are they doing things you want to be doing? Are they creatively challenging you? Are they telling you the truth? Right? Think about that. Here's another great one related to that. Don't be the best player in the band. Has anyone ever heard that before? What that means is if you are the best at what you do in your area, let's say in Detroit, let's say in your company, you have nobody else to learn from. You're the best. Where are you going to grow? How are you going to grow if you are already at the top? You need to be the mediocre player in the band, the okay player in the band, the player in the band that still looks up to the lead singer or the lead guitarist so that you have room to grow, because otherwise you're just stagnating. It may feel good to be the best at what you're doing in your area, in your field, in your city, in your town, but you're limiting your growth. If you don't fulfill, this is number 5. If you don't fulfill your dreams, you will work to fulfill someone else's. That's what full-time employment is about. You're fulfilling someone else's dreams. Now, you might go home at the end of the night and work on your own stuff. I encourage you to take your highest priority action steps and do them before you go into the office. Do them first thing in the morning. Eat that frog, get it out of the way, and then go do your work for someone else. Because there will always, there's never the right time. There's always excuses. You will always find something else to do. Finally, I've been consulting now for 5 years. And it's not like a walk in the park, right? Sometimes I don't know where the money's going to come from. Sometimes there's weird client stuff happening. So the way that I deal with that, without getting crazy, without getting these extreme highs and extreme lows, is I've learned that every win has a drawback. And every loss has a benefit. And that is a way of regulating your emotions around things and staying very even-keeled. So I'm balancing my perspective at all times. If I win a client, I just want a contract. If I win a client, what are the drawbacks? Okay, well, the drawbacks are that I'm really going to have to work hard to build their trust. The drawbacks are that I'm not going to get paid on a payment, until 30 days or 60 days out or whatever it may be. The drawbacks are that I'm going to have to do a lot more traveling and be away from home. What are the, when I lose a client, I'll give you a great example. Last summer, I was losing a client. And I had done everything I could. I went out to Portland to go meet them. We did a big presentation, tried to wow them, took them out to dinner, blah, blah, blah. You know what? It was done. Sometimes it's just done. It was a good run, and it was done. And during my presentation with them, I had to present to some very high-level executives at a publicly traded company. And so I got prepared, and I did this thing, I did this talk, and I'm like, I'm talking to C-level executives. Like, I feel like that's a big deal for me in my business. But we still lost it. And I thought, well, okay, what's the benefit of losing that? And I realized, well, you know what? Now I have experience talking to people at the highest echelons of business. Now I can walk into a boardroom because I've done it, and I can talk to people at that level with confidence, with authority, without my voice shaking. I can do it. I've done it. About a week after that happened, I lost the contract. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? What's happening? Where's the money? And I get a call from someone who I worked with a few years prior, and he says, Laura, we need you. And I said, okay, I'm available. And I said, well, what do we need to do? He says, you need to come in, fly to California, and present to our C-level executives. Oh, okay, I can do that, because I just fucking did it. I went to California, I presented. Not only did I get the contract, I doubled my money. Okay? Thank you. So, just remember, look for the benefits to the losses. What are you learning from that experience? What do you gain from it? We often think it's like all gloom and doom. It's not. And that's the final thing I want to leave you with is a quote that I always use when I'm feeling a little blue or concerned or worried about taking that next courageous leap, which is that this might just be the best thing that's ever happened. This might also be the worst thing that's ever happened. But you don't know until you try. So why not change your attitude? Why not adopt that it could just be the best thing that's ever happened and move forward?